Okay, so here we go. So Daenerys, right? Fourth installment in this novel, yeah? Okay, welcome to the ramblings of an insane person online, commenting on a Song of Ice and Fire, Book 3, Storm of Swords. Among the various structures that artistic content usually maps onto, more or less neatly, 6-act structure, 5-act structure, 4-act structure. A lot of commentators for this novel, blogs, video essays, podcasts, seem to favor analyzing the work from the 3-act structure point of view. And I know, I said it in my rambling commentary for chapter 27, which kind of marked the end of Act 1, not just arithmetically in an 82-chapter book, thematically, in a sense. But I think this is probably a good place to expand a little on that. In terms of character arcs, I guess it works, because, Act 1 really is where characters are simply told, yes, but... meaning that, yes, this is your trajectory where you're meant to go. We learned that at the end of the previous book. But first, here's a massive detour, a not altogether pleasant one, that you'll have to take before you get back on that quest of yours. And, well, this detour might actually change the significance of your initial trajectory, destination, MacGuffin, whatever, either by changing the purpose, the importance of it, or by changing the character. Most obvious one. Yeah, let's go through that, the whole thing. The most obvious character, Jaime. Yes, you're going home, boy. You'll be pleased to know. With a few terms and conditions, but yeah, you're going back home to your family and day job. But... first, there's this little detour you have to take at House Bolton in Harrenhal, courtesy of the Bloody Mummers. Oh, and you're also going to lose your sword hand in the process. So deal with it. Catelyn and Robb. I like to view them as two characters, rolled into one, even though their roles on the board are obviously very different. But they do share a geographical location now. They are beginning to sort of finally think and plan and strategize in unison for a change. Yes, we gotta do this. So yeah, for these two characters, it's like, yes, you are eventually going to resume your campaign to reconquer the North, Winterfell, Deepwood Motte, Torrhen Square, and Moat Cailin, I'm told it's actually pronounced Moat Cailin. I read that somewhere on the wiki, Ice and Fire. But yeah, you're going to do that. But Catelyn and Robb, yes, you are going to do that. But yeah, well, first there's this couple of hiccups in your trajectory. Primarily a consequence of those poo-poos you made, you adorable screw-ups. Releasing the aforementioned Jaime and disregarding the contract you took with old Walder Frey. That marriage agreement. So yeah, first, chop, literally. You'll have to alienate the Karstarks by chopping Rickard's head off, and then it's off to the twins for a groveling apology to old Walder and a wedding involving Edmure and we don't exactly know which Walder, which of Walder's daughters. And then after all that, hopefully you'll resume your initial trajectory, or so is the plan. Tyrion. Yes, you'd like to get back to political plotting and scheming, influence, in the chambers of power. I know, that's totally your element. But it was all taken away from you at the Blackwater battle, along with 3/4 of your nose, apparently. But you'll get back there. But you will re-enter the small council by the back door, namely the position of Master of Coin, left vacant by Peter Baelish, which by now we're beginning to suspect might be a tainted gift, just might. And B, while you're at it, take care of a whole lot of chores that really should be assigned to your Uncle Kevin. You know, he's grieving, the poor fella. Be a good boy. Do all these things, and then you'll get back on track. And incidentally, you'll also have to marry Sansa. Whoops. Speaking of Sansa, yeah, it's a bit more complicated in Sansa's case, because you couldn't decide, dear Sansa, between fleeing King's Landing with Dontos on the one hand and being whisked away to Highgarden by the Tyrell Corporation and marry their firstborn son Willas on the other. Well, guess what? You'll get to do neither, for now anyway, because you're marrying Tyrion, aren't you? Jon, yeah, everybody loves Jon. Jon, you're done with your mission of infiltrating the wildlings, reconnaissance, espionage, or a French word like that. Yeah, well, you can return to base now, but, see, there's always a but. Well, it's not going to be as simple as that, considering you'll have to get your heart broken, cue to violins, not to mention Ygritte's heart. In fact, in Jon's own words, if I'm going back home, then why am I feeling so hollow? Chew on that. Dear listener, Arya, think you're going back to your mom? Yeah, well, you'll be going eventually, but not as a traveler, with your traveling companions, Gendry, Hot Pie, etc., but sold for a ransom by the Brotherhood Without Banners. Massive detour there, several detours actually. Not to mention that you lose your traveling companions along the way. Things don't always go as planned in this novel. We have learned by now. Oh, and Samwell, did you think you were going to sit pretty at the Fist of the First Men, waiting for the Great Ranging North to return? Well, you haven't reckoned with the others. The others, capital O. You're on your own now. Well, not really, but I mean, no high-ranking officer who seemingly knows the best course of action to tell you, okay, we're going to do this. You got to rely on your own initiative from now on. Your dad would be proud of you. Or not. Plus Gilly or Gilly, I heard it pronounced both ways, Gilly and Gilly, and I somehow fancy Gilly, and I don't know why. And you're probably laughing. Oh, you're so clueless. It's, of course, everybody knows it's Gilly. And Gilly and baby on board. So yeah, you got to think of them too. Yeah, and as you can hear, my cat obviously agrees. So let's let him in and. Yeah, let's see if he can also chip in and contribute to the discussion. Is that all you have to say? Is that really the best you've got? Oh well, can never rely on, no. So yeah, good old Samuel. Davos. You thought your life had been spared because your purpose was to head back to Dragonstone and whack Melisandre. See, this was in the first act, but no. You wanted to whack Melisandre if it's the last thing you do. Well, no. Your role in the story will be totally different from now. Yes, well, you have to be patient, I'll tell you. Hand to the king. Huh? Like the sound of that? He does. I guess Bran is the one character whose trajectory remains pretty much unaltered. Keep traveling north, encounter people, keep traveling. You get there eventually. Just you can't miss it. After all, you'll only be wandering through almost uncharted territory way up north. beyond the wall. As long as you keep traveling north, you can't miss what you seek, which happens to be this three-eyed crow who's supposed to teach you how to fly. I mean, come on. It couldn't be clearer than that. I mean, just seriously, off you go, boy. But shall we talk about Daenerys? I mean, she's the one character to whom the detour is spelled out loud and clear in the text of the novel. Literally, to go west, you must travel east, as Quaithe never gets tired of reminding her, even via Skype on occasions. And travel east she did, picking up an army of Unsullied in the process, which might come in handy. And it's with Daenerys Act 1, it's with Daenerys, the character, that Act 1 ended in a huge barbecue, if you remember, with the so-called good masters of Astapor, as the plane standing in for the meat and veggies on the grill. The good masters. But really, an equally valid way of splitting this novel, and this is my point, and the reason why I'm looking at this novel through act structures, various act structures right now, is basically in two halves. If you're being lazy like me, it's 82 chapters, 42. 82 chapters, no, what is it? 41 chapters, Act 1, 41 chapters, Act 2, which is indeed what Harper Voyager, the publishing house Harper Voyager, did for the British edition of this book. You know, with characters at the beginning of the descending trajectory in book 1, and in this new redirections of theirs in Act 2. And once again with Daenerys, it's indeed with Daenerys that we have officially crossed into the second half of the book, or rather the second volume, if you happen to hold a Harper Voyager edition, split into two different volumes. And we have now finished, and if you remember, those two books had like these quirky titles, like we have finished reading book 1, which is called Steel and Snow, and we're about to embark on a read of Blood and Gold. Yeah, that's right. Those are the titles. I don't know if these cheesy titles were actually decided by George R. R. Martin, or maybe just, gave it a nod and approved, and then, wait. What did you say these books will be called? But it was too late by then. The person from Harper Voyager had already passed the message. I don't know. Blood and Gold. We're now about to, we finished Steel and Snow, and we're about to embark on Blood and Gold. Okay. My point, dear listener, if you can spot it, I know I've told you, rambling commentary and incoherent commentaries. My point is that since this is a bit of a special character, oh my God, I'm in chapter, I haven't had my morning coffee yet. My point is that since this is a bit of a special chapter of sorts, I would like to do something different. Let me introduce you to a webpage that has been one of the regular resources I've relied on for my studies of Ice and Fire. Meet Joeltronics. Let me show you. All right. So do you see what's going on here? This is the website I was telling you about. Check this out. Okay, I just put it on a full screen, and here we go. Now, the first thing to notice, domain. Joeltronics, Joel, as in Joel, the name, tronics, as in the suffix in the word electronics, I guess. Does this person, I don't know, I have no idea. To this person's name, this is the only thing that can be traced to this person's name online, unless you come up with a better and more detailed info. Joeltronics.github. hub. Oh, you bloody git. This is the hub for gits. I don't know. I really don't know what this person had in mind. Well, Joel. Hello, can I call you Joel? Got book, show, bookers. The domain I was saying is IO, which from what I gather is actually the this Chagos Island. You know, the what's an American military base. Now, does this person reside there as army person, armed forces personnel? Was that domain just happened? Did that domain just happen to be up for grabs? So Joel decided to grab it. Anyway, let's get right down to it. Game of Thrones episode chapter coverage. For those of you who, I don't know, either came to this series via the TV series, the HBO TV series, or are reading and watching. You're doing the read and watch. I've read a few chapters now. Let's see how these chapters were translated on screen by HBO, by Weiss and Benioff. Is that their names? You have a full. I mean, this is huge. I tried to. At some point, I thought, okay, why don't I just copy and paste all of this to an Excel sheet if this site is ever taken down, because I would be mourning if they took it down. Okay, let me show you. Season 1 over here. Yeah, you see? Season 2. This is all of the breakdown of season 3, 4, 5. Each episode with its own title, all the way down to, of course, season 6. And for every season, for every episode, the actual chapters narrated, portrayed on screen. Look at this. Look, first of all, first thing to notice, look how neat. You can actually appreciate it visually right now. Look how neat season 1 maps onto Game of Thrones. Look at that. Roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus bits of 8 and 9. Of course, Daenerys is usually more than one chapter per episode. Winter is Coming, also known as the pilot. Look at that. Is where you get an adaptation of a prologue. Bran 1, Catelyn 1, Daenerys 1, Eddard 1, Jon 1, Catelyn 2. We skip this area. Apparently this area, see, was never adapted. Bran 2, Tyrion 1, Jon 1. These two, actually, no. These two will be adapted in this other episode, The King's Road, Daenerys, etc. Look how neat things are in a Game of Thrones. Here you see the dividing line between book 1 and book 2. So let's see how messy things start to get when you get to Clash of Kings, which starts here. This is beautiful. Look at the work Joel has done. My hat off to you, Joel. You deserve a clap, and I don't mean no sarcastic slow clap. A proper. Okay, Clash of Kings. Here we go. See, things begin to scatter a bit, here. If you only, instead of just a square, if you only see like a little dot here, it's because only a part of this chapter here, Jon 1, for example, was adapted in the episode known as Fire and Blood. You rest your cursor on the dot. Hey, my dot is supposed to be magnified when I shake it. Here we go. You rest your cursor right here. And usually a message should pop up. Not in this case, but here. What about here? What about here? Varys gives Tyrion the riddle. You see? And that's all he does. That's all that happens from this chapter in the episode What is Dead May Never Die. See what I mean? Look at it. Scatter, 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 scatter. All the way down here. Maybe a little bit more neatly towards the end of the Clash of Kings. And then we come to the book that we're dealing with right now, that we're sinking our teeth into. And here we are. Storm of Swords starts here. All of its, in its massive glory. See? All its 82 chapters right here. I mean, I could spend hours on this website. There you go. Seasons, a bit of everything, really. We are reading, in case you have already watched the series, know, dear and gentle listener, that we are right now reading chapters which were adapted in Season 2, 3, 4, 5, and in no small part, like an entire chapter was adapted, for example, in Season 6. We learn of Balon Greyjoy's death. Oh, shoot. I just violated my no spoiler policy. Sorry. Well, I mean, nobody lives forever, all right? Oh, God. I want to slap my own face. And here, say here and here. So this is what we're reading. Of course, needless to say, by the time we get to Feast for Crows, and then Dance with Dragons, here they are. We can sort of like line them up together almost. Look at that. I mean, it's just all over the place. What else would you expect? The books were not exactly all over the place. They were, geographically divided, not chronologically, but also, let's face it, I mean, I think, in my humble opinion, that Benioff and Weiss would have done a better job if they'd, literally stuck to the word and purpose and the point and purpose of, if they literally adapted each chapter rather than, going off on a tangent and taking their own decisions. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this. And by the time you've changed too many things, you can't go back. You can't go back on track because character arcs and trajectories have changed. So what are you going to do? So this is why this just compare it with the Game of Thrones, which started in a very linear and not to mention Shakespearean sort of style and cinematography and acting. It was perfect. You can see why. Now you have the graphic representation of why so many fans of the book series are disgruntled. There. Okay. So, right. Moving on. Shall we? Yeah, all right. Let's move on. So, in the previous Daenerys chapter, we saw Dany get her own army of Unsullied at the Plaza of Pride in Astapor. Except that when it came to offering Drogon the Dragon, as a payment to the so-called good masters who were selling the army to her, as was part of the deal, Daenerys instead swung the slaver's whip in the face of the main good master conducting the deal, some Krasny's Monaclos guy, and released Drogon on him, shouting, "Drogon, Dracarys!" I don't know if that was her actual voice, which was the sign for her followers to attack the slavers, with the help of the Unsullied, who at this point obeyed her, as she was now their official owner, having been handed the symbolic whip. So she had the slavers killed. The other slaves joined her, and soon Astapor was conquered, which one might say is all kinds of puzzling. And this has actually been pointed out by smarter people than yours truly, like Preston Jacobs, in a video titled "Storm is Great, but also Sloppy." Also, a more concise version exists, uploaded by someone else. It's called "These Storm of Swords plot points make no sense." It's basically just the plot points minus the Q&A that follows. Whenever you get a chance, check them out. So, objections to the scene where Dany gets her army. This is what Preston Jacobs has to say. He goes, let's keep in mind that no merchant, especially one who deals in military sales, would be so careless as to hand the rights and total control to an entire army that could be used to kill them while simply grabbing a dragon on a chain. No matter how arrogant, no one is that dumb. Imagine you're a gun merchant and a stranger walks into town wanting to buy all of your weapons. Would you hand them to him? Blah, blah, blah. So here Preston Jacobs seems to be loosely thinking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know the scene where Tuco re-equips himself with guns by first assembling his ideal model with different parts from other revolvers on the counter of this gun shop. Remington, Colt, Smith & Wesson, which I always thought, would that even have been possible at the time? Were those parts really like universal, compatible? Sorry, I'm not an expert. I've only ever fired a Beretta AR back in my military days, and the only thing, and the only thing made by a different brand that was actually compatible for that automatic rifle was the bullets. Yes, I got to fire bullets made for the Kalashnikov rifle. And then I was handed a Kalashnikov and had the honor of firing from it as well. Anyway, but I never really got into the whole discipline expertise, let alone with regard to firearms from the American Civil War period. I know there are experts out there, so if you, dear listener, happen to be one of them, clue me in, please. Anyway, so Tuco, in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, assembles his ideal gun down to the clicking sound of the barrel when he scrolls it. Is that what it's called when you slowly spin the empty barrel of a revolver? Russian roulette style. Anyway, so he then demands ammo, which the guy just hands him. He goes, oh, yeah, sure, no problem at all. I'm sure I can judge by your attire that, of course, you're an honest traveler with nothing but good intentions on your mind. So, yes, help yourself to my bullets. And he then proceeds to, try the gun. He fires a few shots in the backyard where there's a target practice, and then proceeds to not only threaten the shop proprietor with that very gun, so as to walk away without paying for the gun, but he also robs the store. Yeah. You don't mess with Tuco. Eli Wallach. Great performance there. So yeah, that's pretty much for Daenerys. That's pretty much what Daenerys does at the end of the previous chapter. So what is she up to now? Well, this chapter, dear listener, we finally get to that. This chapter begins with her own, with her on the march again, and predictably, obstacles aplenty. Like this host of 5,000 soldiers sent out from Yunkai to meet her. What's going on here? Where are we? As usual, George R. R. Martin doesn't tell us immediately. The immediate focus is on the sellswords, because about 20% of the army is made up of sellswords. This is a host, I told you, that's just left the walls of Yunkai to meet Daenerys' army. So 20% of this army is made up of sellswords, and we meet here for the first time two separate companies of sellswords, or mercenaries, or indeed PMSC, the Stormcrows and the Second Sons. The actual Yunkish army is right in the middle, sort of like sandwiched between these two companies of soldiers of fortune. I'm soon going to run out of synonyms for sellswords. So Danny has insisted on riding to the top of a hill to get a look at these soldiers ahead of her march. And this is where we find out about similarities and differences between Astapor and Yunkai. Like from what she can see, the officers looked indistinguishable from Astapors at a distance. Tall, bright helms and cloaks, sewn with flashing copper discs. But immediately Jorah Mormont informs Danny that really the soldiers led by the officers, even though they may look like the Unsullied soldiers, are not at all badass, really. Because while Astapor specialize in training, Astapor's leadership specializes in training slave soldiers, Yunkai still employs slaves. So yeah, they're not nice guy either. They're not in no way morally better, But mainly, as Jorah elegantly puts it, they're bed slaves and not warriors. Sex workers, as it were. Also, the Yunkai army also flies its own banner featuring the Giscari harpy, okay, same as Astapor. And just to remind ourselves, this harpy thing, this mythological creature, as described by George R.R. Martin. Here, let me read it out to you. It's got a woman's face with gilded hair, ivory eyes, and pointed ivory teeth. And in place of arms, she has the wings of a bat or a dragon. She's got legs of an eagle. And behind, she wears a scorpion's curled and venomous tail. Plus, important detail, there's a heavy chain dangling from her talons, an open manacle at either end. And now, in essence, the Giscari harpy, as represented in Yunkai, is pretty much the same as what we saw, but she grasps a whip and iron collar in her talons instead of length of a chain. So, see, small stylistic differences. Yunkai is not exactly a copy-paste version of Astapor. There are differences that are kind of significant symbolically. Yunkish masters are more cowardly for once, hence the yellow bricks the city is built from. That's right, they've got a yellow brick road somewhere. I mean, they must have one. It's not mentioned, but I'm sure they have, leading right to the village the city's main square. I bet it's a yellow brick road. As opposed to Astapor, which is made of red bricks. Good old, industrial, like picture 1800s Manchester. That sort of. What else? Anyway, so Danny goes, right, Jorah. Does that mean that this army over there, yeah? Can we hand their own asses back to them? If they're as unimpressive as you say. But what she really wants to know is whether a lot of blood will be spilled in overtaking this army, because she's still got a bit of a PTSD from the fall of Astapor, where apparently blood was spilled in copious amounts, in gallons, and now they've got all those civilians with them, or hors de combat in Geneva Convention parlance. I know what you're thinking, dear listener. You're thinking to yourself, I think you'll find it's actually pronounced hors de combat. It's French, you see. You're saying that right now, twirling either your moustache or a lock of your hair. I'm trolling myself right now, It's why do I do that? Anyway, civilians, hors de combat. Okay. Anyway, that dialogue with Jorah is important because this is where we find out where she's at in her trajectory. She has left Astapor behind and is now traveling east to west. as Quaithe said, or more like west to east, east to west. Yeah, finally is beginning to travel west because of the shape of Slaver's Bay, if you look at a map. But she's more like traveling northeast to go west, if you really want to be precise. But it doesn't sound as catchy as a prophecy uttered by Quaithe. And and the other problem is, the Unsullied can tear this enemy army a new one, but the sellswords are mounting horses, and they can make mincemeat of the freed slaves, former slaves, who are now riding with her. Those civilians I was telling you about from Astapor. And yes, I mean, she has blood riders with her, the Dothraki, but I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember exactly how many. Certainly not 1,000. Because apparently, what she did, what Daenerys did, she freed a whole bunch of slaves back in Astapor, and they are now riding with her. See, we find things out bit by bit here. So Daenerys is thinking, all right, maybe we can resolve the thing amicably, parley, as Keira Knightley is so fond of saying in Pirates of the Caribbean. Parley. She's thinking, if these guys want to talk, I can maybe just placate them, kind of like, all right, folks, I know, we started on the wrong foot here. Yes, I did incinerate your twin city Astapor, slay all of the ruling class therein. True, not denying that. And now you see me marching towards your fair city, and I do use the term fair loosely here, at the host of a mere 8,500 units army. So you're thinking, okay, better safe than sorry. But there's always a but at the end. Can't we just talk things through first? So what she does is this. Let's first schedule a meeting, or schedule, if you prefer, a meeting with the captains of the Yunkish army. Oh, and also with the heads of the sellswords commanders. Heads, as in chiefs, but, if you've made it to the end of this chapter. Okay, all right, moving on. Anyway, so she relies on these guys' curiosity to see the dragons, presumably. So, when she meets them in her lounge, in her living room, part of her tent, that's the living room quarters, she'll have to make sure to have her dragons next to her. And maybe, the spectacle of her feeding them while they roast, they grill their own meat with their breath. Yeah, that's always something something to tell back. To tell your mates when you get back. Oh, you don't know what you missed, mate. So that's They will want to see the dragons, therefore they will come and parley with me rather. And that's how she knows, they will attend this meeting. Oh. And she wants to see them separately. The sellswords commanders, she wants to see them. The Stormcrows at midday, the Second Sons at 2 p.m., and the actual Yunkai army captains around tea time, I suppose. I don't know. Anyway. And I think, they did a mishmash of these two companies of mercenaries in the HBO TV series. They merged them into one. Some of the characters, the leaders, were all like mixed. It's too complicated. Let's just have one meeting. She's not even going to see the Yunkai army. That's what they figured when they were chopping things off from the book in order to adapt them into the script that they eventually used for this chapter and for this episode, which you now know exactly what episode we're talking about because you've got that website, Joeltronics. Yeah, you're welcome. So what's happening here? Okay, let's have three separate meetings. Kind of what Tyrion did, when he was trying to find out who is loyal to Cersei, and he met
Littlefinger, Varys, and Master Pycelle separately, to tell them separate plans to see which plan would reach Cersei's ear. Yeah, which is kind of really rather clever, I thought. Anyway, so by the time Dany gets back to her encampment, all the Unsullied soldiers are busy bees, digging, chopping, sharpening, doing lots of Unsullied activities that fortifying a camp entail. And because the Unsullied can't bear sleeping in an unfortified camp, or so Grey Worm informs them. Now, this Grey Worm is an officer in the Unsullied ranks. Catchy name, huh? But you know how it is with the Unsullied. Their names are picked at random every morning, with the random Unsullied name generator. It's an app they have, which consists of a huge barrel where engraved name tags that are thrown in every night. They get reshuffled every night. Chaka, 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 chaka. They shake the barrel, I guess. So that every morning each soldier has a different name every day. Yet one more step in the process of stripping these soldiers of their personal individual identities. And these names being invariably a color and an animal. This is how the random name generator was programmed. Like a color and an animal. But don't imagine stuff like, indigo swan, mauve unicorn, fuchsia, fluffy koala bear. No, they're all kinds of unappealing. They're all kind of unappealing, like, so you don't get too attached to an identity for the day. It's the same old story. So they are called names like Grey Worm, Red Flea, Blue Spider. That's actually kind of cool. Blue Spider. I just made it up, actually. No, but there is a Red Flea somewhere in the ranks and file. And it's precisely this Grey Worm who's informing Dany on the progress in building and fortifying the camp, digging the trench around it, installing stakes to guard off potential invaders. Now that these Unsullied are under Daenerys' command, this usage of changing names every day has been discarded, because as free men, the soldiers were allowed to pick their own names. And also the fact that they are now officers, there are officers among them, is a new thing for them. Because the instructions that came with the Unsullied army, if you looked, at the back of the box, the instructions penned by the so-called good masters specified that these soldiers should exclusively take orders, not give them. It's all still part of, ensuring their absolute obedience. Yeah, there was a whole set of instructions. Change their names regularly. Don't put them in charge. Don't feed them after midnight. Kind of like the gremlins. Don't get them wet. Sorry, I couldn't help it. All right, okay. But Dany threw the instruction manual out of the window. She's a true hacker. You gotta go beyond the instruction booklet. So that's how Grey Worm, now permanently named Grey Worm, is an officer in the Unsullied rank and file. And why did he choose to retain his Unsullied name instead of choosing a cool-sounding name? Well, let him explain that better than I ever could. Here, let me read you the quote. Got it here. It is a lucky name. The name this one was born to. The name this one was born to. When. I'm butchering it. Sorry. It is a lucky name, Grey Worm. The name this one was born to was accursed. That was the name he had when he was taken for a slave. But Grey Worm is the name this one drew the day Daenerys Stormborn set him free. Sorry, something just went into my eye. A speck of dust, it seems. Oh, pesky dust. So Danny says, yeah, the wise masters of Yunkai have assembled a slave army to meet us. This is where we find out that the rulers / slavers of Yunkai call themselves the wise masters, as opposed to good masters in Astapor. See, it's all these tiny differences. Anyway, Grey Worm is not concerned. He goes, yeah, tell you what, those so-called soldiers might be great at giving oral pleasure, but we're such badasses with the 3 spears, so nothing to worry about. Looking forward for a bit of combat, you know. This dialogue is slightly paraphrased, I should tell you at this point, dear listener, in case you didn't realize. So with regards to all those people Danny freed back in Astapor, they're all there in the encampment. And, well, to say that they're not quite as well organized as the Unsullied, that's putting it mildly. Because, I mean, yeah, well, they have 0 combat experience or training. I mean, here, let me read you the passage again. I'm fond of the actual text, the verbatim quotes. This second camp had no ditches, no tents, no sentries, no horse lines. Those who had horses or mules slept beside them for fear they might be stolen. Goats, sheep, and half-starved dogs wandered freely amongst hordes of women, children, and old men. Danny, it's a refugee camp. Danny had left Astapor in the hands of a council of former slaves, led by a healer, a scholar, and a priest. That's how she left Astapor. Okay, you 3 are in charge. Wise men all, she thought, and just. Yet, even so, tens of thousands prefer to follow her to Yunkai rather than remain behind in Astapor. I gave them the city, and most of them were too frightened to take it. Yes, long passage, but I feel important. Important to give us an idea of the general situation, both here and back in Astapor. Because over here, well, all those people who, in Danny's words, were too scared to take the city, basically pulled a life of Brian on her. You know, she went, you are all free, all individuals. You don't need to follow anybody. To which they just went, that's right, all in unison. We're free. We're all individuals. And we're free to follow you. And they did. They got you there, Danny. So she's got this ragtag multitude of mouths to feed now who aren't even trained to fight. Well, some of them try at least to be self-sufficient by, well, eating up the land as they go. But, you know, what could they possibly be eating? Roots and nuts and rats and a whole lot of things that end in teeth. Speaking of which, my cat is just causing mayhem. I don't know. Just let him do his thing. He'll soon get tired, hopefully. If you can hear these tiny little bells. Yeah, no, it's not Daenerys shaking her head with a little silver bell attached to her hair, as we last saw her in Astapor. No, it's some weird toy with feathers. It's the thing with feathers, in Emily Dickinson's words. Boy, man, I'm on a roll today. As well as no, let's, I'm not quite done with Astapor right now, because leaving a power vacuum in that city with, what was it again, a science teacher, a masseuse, and a priest in charge of the whole city, with no muscle to enforce any laws whatsoever. What could possibly go wrong, huh? Yeah, well, I guess we shall see. Anyway, so she goes back into her tent, her pavilion, actually, as befits royals when camping outdoors. And that's where we meet the odd couple again, Arstan, a.k.a. Whitebeard, and Strong Belwas. Because her Dothraki blood riders are out there, surveying outriders, as it were. So the two fellas are in charge of her protection now. We met them right at the end of, Clash of Kings. And the translator girl, Miss Sunday, is also there, giving us a bit of exposition. Turns out the official language in Yunkai is also Valyrian. High Valyrian, I think they call it. Just a different variety from the Valyrian spoken in Astapor, which means that, really, for all the Giscari roots these slavers, bay masters claim to have, we're sons of the Harpy, and Giscari this and Giscari that. It seems to me that they're more likely descendants of the Valyrians, who kicked the Giscari's asses way back, conquered the area, and then went native, I suppose. Which also means that really, if there are any descendants of the original Giscaris, they're more likely to be found among the enslaved population out there. My 2 cents, my theory. I'm allowed a theory for every commentary, and this is one. Okay. So anyway, Jorah Mormont comes back an hour later with the 3 captains from the Stormcrows. So I guess that conversation that we just had was at 1100 hours, because then Jorah comes back an hour later and it must be 12 noon. So let's take a look at these 3 Stormcrows captains. There's, here we go. Prendal this has to be a so-called Giscari's name. Prendal Rezen, if you want to pronounce it with a Rhein, like Arabic, who is a Giscari, or so he claims, because we have just established that the ruling class of Giscaris are actually descendants of the old Valyrians, most probably, although we haven't yet looked at the DNA evidence, but common sense seems to suggest that. So... lot of Arabic, the Arabic sort of like pronunciation is prominent here, because, okay, so you've got Prendalna Resn, pronounced with the Rhein, then there's Salor the Bold, okay, he's not remarkable, this middle guy, Salor the Bold from Karth, actually, yeah, here's another one, Karth, there's a Kaf, there's another Arabic letter, because Karth is, of course, spelled with a Q, which would be the Qaf. And Dario Naharis from Tirosh. Actually, and once again, Arabic. Since his name is spelled with a double A, I am tempted to pronounce it Dario, with the Arabic Ain. Unless it's like in Somali, where a double A simply means a stressed vowel, a stressed A. That's right. In fact, their spelling of Somalia is with double A. Somalia, double A. So at least we know it's not pronounced Dario, French. Or maybe, Dario, I suppose. No, it's Dario. Okay, so I guess. Never mind, let's just pronounce it Dario. Okay, moving on. Like the historical Persian king. Do you think Tirosh is a stand-in for Iran in this universe? Cyrus, Darius, who knows? Anyway, the reason why I'm focusing on Dario and not the other 2, well, I mean, you'll know the reason if you've already read this chapter until the end, obviously. But I'm also intrigued by how this chapter this character is presented right away, because, I mean, he's supposed to be a fighter, soldier of fortune, whatever. So getting into close, head-to-head combat is kind of like in his job description, right? And yet, he comes with a whole lot of traits, attributes, accessories, whatever, that sort of contradict all that. That line from the movie Fight Club. Fight Club became the reason to cut your hair short or to trim your fingernails, etc., yeah? Well, none of that with Dario. Here, let me read you the passage. Dario was flamboyant, even for a Tiroshi. His beard was cut into 3 prongs and dyed blue, the same color as his eyes and the curly hair that fell to his collar. His pointed mustachios were painted gold. Okay, but moustaches. His clothes were all shades of yellow, a foam of Mirish lace, the color of butter spilled from his collar, and cuffs. His doublet was sewn with brass medallions in the shape of dandelions, and ornamental goldwork crawled up his high leather boots to his thighs. Gloves of soft yellow suede, is that how it's pronounced, were tucked into the belt of gilded rings, and his fingernails were enameled blue. It's too much, isn't it? I mean, for one thing, okay, lots of things that a potential enemy can grab, you know, and strangle you with. Not to mention, I mean, you're visible from afar. Not much stealth in you, you know, with all that blue in the middle of the desert, whatever. See what I mean? But it's the Giscari who speaks up of the three captains, the guy in charge. And it's thanks to what he says, really, that we find out Dany's intentions. She wants to conquer Yunkai. Yeah, now we have it spelled out loud and clear. And this Prendal Norazl dude, just says, yeah, no, I would advise against it. You know, I would advise against trying to conquer Yunkai. That trick you pulled in Astapor is not going to work here. You know, the Astapori were unprepared. You caught them with their pants down, but we're solid, you know. And this is where Daenerys pulls her usual, I'm only a silver-haired teenage girl with no experience of warfare card. I don't know if that's her actual voice, as I said before. And then she follows it up with, yeah, however, well, we're almost 10,000 strong, and you being, 500 Stormcrows? Yeah, something tells me the odds are in my favor. And those other guys, the Second Sons, yeah, they'll switch sides. The Yunkai army is pretty much a bunch of bad boys with toy weapons and possibly some sex toys. But that's it. Need I say more? Boys with toys. And you can see here really that Prendal is not a very practical man, and bad at maths, which we guess is what Dario must be thinking right now. Not only that, but this Prendal also engages in the usual Giscari, charming, woman, you bray like an ass and make no more sense. Ha, ha, ha. But I like the fact that Daenerys, stands her ground here. Bear in mind, she's just 14 here, so kudos. Belwas, meanwhile, gets restless, and at yet another insult, he just goes, whoa, 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 you kiss your mother with that mouth. Say, Your Grace, you want me to cut off this guy's ugly tongue? Then we could grill it on the barbecue, huh? How'd you fancy that? Actually, no, sorry, okay, I went too far with Belwas. Let me read you the exact quote. He says, Strong Belwas will give his ugly tongue to the little queen if she likes. There. I'm bringing this up because at the time of recording this, Ice and Fire scholar Preston Jacobs, there he is again. He has just published another one of his videos, the latest chapter. Also, he's just published the latest chapter of that crowdsourced, fan fiction, Winds of Winter. It's titled The Boy in the Pyramid, and it features Strong Belwas. And there's this video where he explains how difficult it was to write dialogue for Belwas. Because, as he says, Strong Belwas has been written inconsistently in the 3 novels he appears in. Meaning that while he could sound quite articulate in A Clash of Kings and having no problem referring to himself in the first person, I am Belwas. I am Belwas the Strong. Actually, let me read you the actual quote from A Clash of Kings. There. Thank God for bookmarks, yeah? I am Belwas, Strong Belwas, they named me in the fighting pits of Marine. Never did I lose. I let each man cut me once before I kill him. Count the cuts, and you will know how many Strong Belwas has slain. There, from A Clash of Kings. And this is Preston's argument to say that George R. R. Martin has been dumbing down Belwaz's lines in subsequent chapters to end up making Belwaz sound more like Mongo kills. And he corroborates that by pointing out that everyone generally agrees that Belwaz is a moron. you know the famous line from Daenerys, for example, strong Belwaz could not scheme his way to breakfast. She says so in Daenerys 1, the same book. And then Preston and other contributors to his channel try to somehow explain this, even to the point of theorizing that maybe Jorah hit Belwaz so hard in the head with that brass platter, in Karth's market, when Belwaz and Arstan are first introduced. And Jorah mistakes the two guys for hired assassins. So Jorah must have hit him so hard as to cause him brain damage. But then they realized that Belwaz actually introduced himself after being hit with the platter, and his head was just fine. So no delayed after effect. No, I'm sorry. I'm not accepting that. Anyway, if you're interested in that discussion about the concussion, discussion about the concussion, you can go check out that video by Preston Jacobs. It's titled "Live from DC: Jorah gave Belwaz brain damage? Question mark. No, not now. Don't leave now. No, come on, that's rude. No, but anyway, stay with me, dear listener. It's going to be fun. So, but before I move on back to the chapter, if I may, I think I can settle this, Preston. I don't know if you're listening. Not because I think I'm smarter or better read than Preston Jacobs, but simply because I happen to be a nerdy social linguist. And at the risk of coming across as the guy who's always rushing in George R. R. Martin's defense, I think he's been writing the character Belwaz quite consistently. See, Belwaz is speaking common tongue, which is not his first language, and Preston does acknowledge that. So where is a person, in what circumstances, what context, what scenario, is a person more likely to be fluent in a second or even third language? A non-native speaker is more likely to be fluent in bits of language. What do you call them? Lexical chunks? I think it's the definition, lexical, prefabricated. They've got loads of multiple multiple word collocations. Those things. So bits of language that have been uttered and repeated so many times over, always the same way, in the same order, like, nice to meet you, my name is so-and-so. You could say, you learn it in French, German, Arabic, Mandarin, Russian. You can say it over and over again and you will sound fluent. And to me, that count the cuts and you will know how many strong Belwaz has slain. To me, that sounds like a memorized, sort of like a business card to introduce himself to others, Kind of like, this is how Belwaz introduces himself to everyone. He must have said it like hundreds of times to anyone who cares to listen. And conversely, when it comes to improvised language, our friend Belwaz is bound to be less fluent. There. I've settled it, Preston. If you happen to be listening, you're welcome. No, seriously, I admire you, huh? I really enjoy that fan fiction, Winds of Winter. Will it be over before the real thing is published? If ever? We shall see. We will live to tell the tale. Hopefully. Anyway, so where was I? So Belwaz proposes to chop off Prendal's tongue off, and then he's all like, nah, mate. Nah. I promised these guys they would be safe, and that's the way it's going to be. Okay? Again, I'm paraphrasing this dialogue. So they all leave, all three of them. And a couple of hours later, the captain from the Second Sons turns up. Some guy from Bravos called Miro, goes by the stage name The Titan Bastard. And they immediately hit it off right away, him and Daenerys, because Miro goes, hey, haven't I met you somewhere, like a brothel? Yeah, what a great way to start a conversation. And it's easy to miss, actually, that in the middle of all the sex maniac comments the Titan bastard keeps making, like, come on, let's get our clothes off. Or, come on, sit on my lap, sit on my lap, sit on my lap, let's have a blast. Or, you're worth fighting for, but I'd rather give you a bit of the old, you know what I mean? Want to see it? Want to see it? Yeah? Shall I show it to you? He says all that stuff, I'm paraphrasing. But in the middle of all that, it's actually easy to miss that he's actually making a slightly more honorable argument for not switching sides, on the surface anyway. Because he goes like this, look, a contract is a contract. I have accepted the gold from Yunkai, so I've got to keep my end of the bargain. Kind of like Lee Van Cleef in, again, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Tell you what, Daenerys' plot is beginning to look more and more like a spaghetti western. Never realized that, but look at the setting. This desert, which does look like Spanish desert in Almeria. Anyway, so yeah. And Dany, who knows her history from Jorah Mormont, who told her the tale of the 3,000 of Qohor back in Daenerys 1, this same book. So she goes, hey, after all, you second sons could simply run away if the going gets tough. Am I right? I heard you did that in the past. Remember Qohor? Aha, Miro, she got you there. Yeah, no, but he goes, nah, that was before I was in charge, you know what I mean? Oh, is that right? Okay. So you're the one who inspires the soldiers. Oh, good for you. All right, I guess we'll have to kill you first. See what I mean? I like the fact that she's never out of comebacks, And Jorah, of course, doesn't miss an opportunity to jump at the idea. Kill this guy first? Why, I think that can be arranged, as he runs his thumb across his blade. Because he's uncomfortable with all that, sex talk to Daenerys' face, you see. Yeah, that's another thing, another theme running here. He fancies her. So at the end, Miro also departs, not before asking for a whole wagon of wine, to better think about it. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, the fella downed 3 cups during the negotiation. Doesn't strike me as very professional there, huh? I said he made a more honorable argument, but yeah, he must be pissed by the time he leaves. Staggering, with the agreement that he'll come back with an answer in the morning, same as with the second sons. And as soon as Miro leaves, Arstan and Jorah finally agree on one thing, that there's no hope of getting any real help from these sellswords, not from Prendal, who's Giscari and probably motivated by revenge, and not from Miro, who has a reputation for being a double-faced son of a gun, a naughty boy, and I mean proper naughty, you know what I mean? Did you ever watch the Cockney Star Trek on YouTube? These Romulans are proper naughty. Right, I don't do a very good, I apologize. So yeah, the next morning the Yunkai envoys arrive. Aha. Okay, not tea time, the next day. And whatever I said about Dario, sporting a sort of fashion that really doesn't seem fit for combat. Yeah, well, that goes double for the Yunkai army. I mean, the soldiers sport hair that is shaped, with oils and stuff. Ointments, whatever, shaped like twists and towers. Their helms are actually designed to accommodate that. And the chief among them, some guy called Grazdan Moeras, is riding a white camel, because why not? And he has his hair shaped up as a unicorn's horn. Ooh, that's really mean and scary. Yeah, the unicorn. You're up against the unicorn brigade. It is this unicorn's horn jutting from his brow. Yeah, come on, these guys are no match for the Unsullied. Yet this Grazdan guy, still acts all cocky and shit. He goes, I heard you freed the unsullied soldiers. Yeah, no, we don't do that around here, you know. Unsullied need freedom like a fish needs a hat. Know what I mean? Wink, wink. He smiles at Grey Worm, but Grey Worm gives him nothing. He doesn't even blink. He might as well be made of stone. So he goes on. Tell you what, love. If you fight us, we'll enslave you. Yep, that's right. You too. We could sell you to a pleasure house because you'd fetch a pretty penny. Imagine that. Step right up. Come in here and do the wild thing with the last surviving Targaryen. Step right up. Yeah, can you imagine that? Yeah, but Daenerys also gives him nothing. She just goes, all right, yeah, whatever. You've done your homework, though. At least you know who I am. I'm impressed. And Grazdan moves in for a kill. He's like, yeah, but on the other hand, you do not. If you do not fight us and head right to Westeros to retake your throne, which, pardon me, but I was under the impression that was why you got an army in the first place. So I don't know what you're doing here, threatening us. If you head back to Westeros, then you can have this. And he opens this gigantic chest containing 50,000 gold marks. Gold marks? That's what George R. R. Martin calls them. What did he do? Did he find a Nazi hidden treasure somewhere? These are golden marks, as good as gold, because they're made of gold. These are good everywhere. This will buy us safe passage to Brazil and Argentina. A chest of gold marks. That's what he has to offer Dany. Anyway, by the way, this whole argument of Dany being better off heading to Westeros with this brand new army she has, ideally without wasting a single soldier in further wars in this continent, well, it kind of makes sense. It's sort of like a sound argument from a pragmatic point of view, you know. But ethically, no. So is this what's motivating Daenerys now? Purifying Slaver's Bay from the scourge of slavery? That could be. Let's read on. Because her terms are as follows. She goes, okay, tell you what, mate. You have 3 days. You have 3 days' time to free all your slaves. Give them each a weapon. Allow them to help themselves among their master's possessions. To pay themselves decent wages for a change. And then let my Unsullied enter your city just to make sure you're not still hiding any. And then I will leave you without sacking your city. How does that sound? And Grazdan says, no. Grazdan. Actually, I can't imagine Grazdan as dressed as a minion. Like, Despicable Be's minion. No. At which point, Dany says the word, Dracarys. Just for show, this is a bit mean, but I guess justified. And the dragons just spit fire in the direction of this Grazdan guy. Oh my God, his Stokar catches fire. Yeah, just imagine that, all sped up. And his beard too. Oh my God, somebody help. So that Arson has to pour water over him. Oh, that is so humiliating. Now, bear this in mind, this whole scene, of an envoy almost set on fire. Bear this in mind, because if much later in this series we come across rumors of merciless Daenerys, who sets envoys on fire and so on, and we'll have other bits, piling up against her. This is where the rumor originated, right here in this chapter. But one thing she does do, which you might say is a bit naughty, shall we say, especially considering that she has the numerical advantage. So she doesn't really need to do this. What she does is that as soon as the Yunkai envoy leaves, she immediately gives the order to attack that very night under the cover of darkness, while the second sons are getting pissed on the wine she gave Mira. The Stormcrows are still bickering on whether to switch sides or not, and the Yunkai are lulled into a false sense of security because they think they have 3 days to decide on what to do. Quite Machiavellian, huh? Not ethical, but Machiavellian nonetheless. In fact, the two things are, ethical and Machiavellian. It's kind of like mutually exclusive. So she lays down the tactics to the Unsullied and the Dothraki riders. Attack on 3 sides, catch them with their pens down, etc., etc. Much to Jorah's and Whitebeard's approval, who agree that she's every bit Rhaegar's sister and a queen every inch. And this is also the 3rd time she delivers the line, "Then again, I'm just a silly silver-haired teenager with no experience of warfare." Again, 3 times in this chapter. Do you know what? I have a theory. I allow myself one more theory. I think it's because someone in her past, my money is on the late Viserys. Someone in the past, in Daenerys' past, must have said that very sentence to her over and over again. "You're just a silly girl with no knowledge of how wars are fought." Because Viserys was this grand strategist, wasn't it? Sure. No, but she must have heard it over and over again, and it must have really stung. So she repeats that line every time she proves it wrong, like those kids who got bullied at school, and then they unexpectedly win a sports competition after secretly training for months. So they'll forever be going, "Huh? Not bad for a wimp, huh? Huh?" Yeah, I can't blame those kids, actually. Or Danny. Anyway, as they're all busy preparing their sortie, surprise, Dario. Dario's back. He gets caught by Jorah Mormont as he tries to sneak into the camp, and upon being caught, he claims to be bearing gifts for the queen. So Jorah drags him to Daenerys. And this is where George R. R. Martin goes out of his way to emphasize how Daenerys fancies this Dario as much as she doesn't Jorah. Because her gaze goes from one guy to the other while she's thinking, okay, young, old, smooth skin, hairy, fair, swarthy, lithe, brawny, golden locks, balding. All right, we get it. Book Jorah is nowhere near as suave and charming as Ian Glenn, who plays the character in the HBO series. So Dario was actually played by, I kind of like the English guy who played in season 3, which would be about here in the novel, season 3. You just saw it on Joel Tronics' website. And season 3, where the character Dario is first introduced, and is played by that English guy who I think couldn't return for the rest of the show because he was busy working in the movie Deadpool, the first one. So as playing Ajax, aka Francis in Deadpool, or maybe so he was replaced by another actor. We will go through it when we get there, or maybe it was a Transporter movie that kept him from Game of Thrones. I know his entire career, but not his name. I can't remember it. Sorry, I'll have to look it up later. Anyway, so Dario, what gift did you bring? Dario, pray do tell. And he goes, yeah, the Stormcrows. I bring you the Stormcrows and myself. We'll be fighting for you. Good enough? Excuse me. He twirls his mustache. He does have it. He does have a mustache, so why wouldn't he twirl it? But then he's skeptical. What did the other two guys say? Huh? It seems to me that they are in charge, not you. Yeah, well, they didn't say much, actually. Do you want to speak to them? And from a bag he's been carrying, he pulls out the severed heads of the other two captains, which roll at Daenerys' feet. At which point, the dragons waste no time spitting fire on those heads, roasting that unexpected snack. Dario doesn't even break a sweat. Yeah, whatever. Do your thing, little ones. He goes, I told you not to get too attached to Prendal and Salor in case you were warming up to them. One can never know. So she goes, what did you do that for? And he's all like, oh, well, you know how it is. I'd rather fight for beauty. While Danny's thinking, oh, he's such a bad boy. I fancy him. Again, I imagine. Okay, no. I don't imagine that's her voice, but it's the best I can do. Oh, look at his weapons even, a curving Dothraki arach on his left hip, a Mirish stiletto on his right, and their hilts are a matched pair of golden women, naked and wanton. Say, Dario, are you skilled with those weapons? She says, while twirling a lock of hair. She says, and okay, no, she's not actually doing that, okay? But you can kind of tell that that's what she feels like doing. Because, I mean, she, after all, she has to appear queenish, or an adjective like that. And at which point Dario just delivers a super lengthy monologue, which basically, that I'm not going to read word for word, but it basically boils down to, I live by my own rules, you know what I mean? And Danny's thinking, wow, this dude is a poet, man. And Jorah feeling more and more like the third wheel. God, that must be frustrating. He just goes, if I may, it would be wise to keep this one here. What if it's a trick and he betrays us at the last minute? To which Daenerys turns to Dario as if to say, sorry, you must excuse Jorah. Sometimes he thinks he's my dad. In a creepy and gross kind of way, because a dad who French kissed me? Yuck. No, but all she says is just, nah, this Dario guy is all right. He's legend, wait for it. Dario! Award yourself 5 points if you got that reference. No, okay, no, forget it. It's an awful reference. So he leaves the tent to get his men ready. Dario. The Stormcrows been under new management now, and Jorah is still like, no. That was a blunder. I disapprove of that guy. Yeah, but he's got dreamy blue eyes. No, but really, this is where an interesting conversation takes place between Dany and Jorah at two different layers. Because on the one hand, Jorah is saying, no, you shouldn't trust any man other than me. And Daenerys is all too aware of the reason, because he's jealous and possessive and all, and she spells it all out. He's like, you say the same shit about every man I meet. Payatri is a liar, Xaro is a schemer, Belwas is a braggart, Arstan is an assassin. In other words, every man who might potentially desire me, your grace. Jorah would really like to go, time out, hello, Belwas is a eunuch. Eunuch, is that how you pronounce it? Also, I think Arstan is well past the age to remember how it's even done, But that's what Jorah would like to say, I think. But he can't get a word in edgewise because she's on a roll. She goes, look, I trust you as the first of my Queensguard, commander of my army, my most valued counselor, my good right hand. You're all those things, but you'll never be my lover, all right? Live with it. But all the while she's thinking, wait a minute, those guys in the House of the Undying, coincidentally, in another Daenerys 4, this chapter being Daenerys 4, but in the other Daenerys 4 in Clash of Kings, those guys did say, 3 treasons will you know. Once for blood, and once for gold, and once for love. Does that mean that I will be betrayed by someone I fancy? The betrayal for love. By someone I fancy or by someone who fancies me? So she's thinking that in passing, but all she says to Jorah is just, now off you go. You've got a battle to win, if I recall. You've got a battle to fight and win. Yeah? So go. And off he goes. Tail between his legs, probably cartoon mumbling to himself. Jorah do this, Jorah do that. The rest of the night is spent restlessly, as you can imagine, So Daenerys sends for Arstan. That's right. Sending the old man, for I command it. I want him to tell me about my brother Rhaegar, the brother I never met. She does say, I'm sorry, yeah, it sounds like I'm like a brat, but she does say at some point, I command it. She does say it in this dialogue. Not necessarily here, but she actually says it to Arstan after waking him up in the middle of the night, and then elderly, senior citizen. So Arstan, aka Whitebeard, turns up. Hello. Yeah, listen, mate, back on the ship, on our voyage to Slaver's Bay, you remember? You told me the story of how my brother found his true purpose. Do you still remember that? If you don't, because senility, let me jog your memory. You said that one day Rhaegar found something in the scrolls that changed him. Some sort of prophecy which he interpreted as being like totally about him. Teenagers, right? So he suddenly appeared early one morning in the yard as the knights were donning their steel and said something like, I will require a sword and armor. It seems I must be a warrior, according to that thing I read. Yeah, that story. I really enjoyed that. So what's the follow-up? And Arstan is all like, dude, I was sleeping so well. No, actually, no, I'm joking. Of course not. No, I mean, I assume that's what he's thinking, maybe, but he's actually saying, why, your grace, you honor me by allowing me to recount the tales of Rhaegar, whom I suspiciously knew so up close and personal, in spite of the fact that I claim to be just a humble squire with a huge gap in my resume, to be sure, because as a boy I squired for a knight of Lord Swan's household, and now I squire for Belwas. And as for what I did between then and now, nothing worth going over, except maybe a quick mention that I served for a time in King's Landing in the days when King Aerys sat there at the Iron Throne and walked beneath the dragon skulls that looked down from the walls of his throne room. So yeah, that's how I casually became acquainted with Prince Rhaegar, as well as his squires and pretty much all the members of the Kingsguard, not to mention King Aerys II himself. Okay, dear listener, I don't know if I've already mentioned my spoiler policy, namely none. I aim to give out 0 spoilers in these commentaries. But I do reserve the right to be looking back, if not ahead, in this series. And that's what I just did. So if you look at all the things Arstan has been saying so far, not to mention those subliminal threefold, threefold revelations Georgie Boy gives us every now and then. I mean, a picture begins to emerge of Arstan, aka Whitebeard, being, shall we say, more than he claims to be. Nah? And just to give us more info, Arstan starts the story where he left it last time. Here's the quote. Prince Rhaegar's prowess was unquestioned, but he seldom entered the lists in tourneys. He never loved the Song of Swords the way that Robert did, or Jaime Lannister. Men said he loved his harp much better than his lance. Yeah, again, how does he know? I mean, Jaime, yes, because we know he pretty much knew all the Kingsguard under Aerys for some reason. But now we also have to add Robert Baratheon, former king of Westeros, to the list of celebrities that Whitebeard knew intimately. Okay, bear with me, because this monologue is just too good not to be read verbatim. Okay, so here we go. When he was young, his grace rode brilliantly in a tourney at Storm's End, defeating Lord Stephen Baratheon, Lord Jason Mallister, the Red Viper of Dorne, and a mystery knight who proved to be the infamous Simon Toyne, chief of the Kingswood Outlaws. He broke 12 lances against Sir Arthur Dayne, the sword of the morning, but he wasn't a champion eventually. That honor went to another some other random knight of the Kingsguard who unhorsed Prince Rhaegar in the final tilt. Okay, two things. Will you please let me talk? The cat really is eager to. I know, I'm about to tell the story. Every villain, villain in his evil lair has to have a cat. I've been expecting you. Okay, so yeah, two things. Somehow, Arstan can't recall the name of that mysterious knight of the Kingsguard who unhorsed Rhaegar. And we readers won't find out until we get to Jaime 8. So I'll shut up about it. If you want to rush ahead and find out, you'll find out. Which should give you a clue. But no, shut up, Salsa. Second thing, there are some doubts as to whether this infamous Simon Toyne really was at the tourney at Storm's End. Again, in that same Jaime 8 chapter, when we get to read a certain white book kept in the tower of the Kingsguard, what do you call it? The White Sword Tower? Anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. After that, we get yet another version of the Harrenhal tourney, the Knight of the Smiling Tree story we heard from Mira in Bran 2, was it? Which was really the second account of it that we get in these novels, because first we had Jaime's reminiscence of it in Jaime 4, Harrenhal being the place where he first donned the white, where he was made a Knight of the Kingsguard. Anyway, Arstan reassures Dany, your brother Rhaegar won the greatest tourney that ever was, the greatest tourney of them all. The tourney Lord Gwent staged at Harrenhal beside the God's Eye in the year of the false spring. The greatest lords and mightiest champions of the Seven Kingdoms rode in that tourney, and the Prince of Dragonstone bested them all. So he really wants to jump ahead to the one tourney that Rhaegar actually did win. Or did they let him win? I don't know. I'm not going to say anything. But look, yeah, Daenerys does have questions about the whole story. It's like, yeah, I've always wanted to know, why is it that Rhaegar crowned Lyanna Stark as Queen of Love and Beauty? I mean, with his wife, Elia Martell, sitting right there. Do you have an explanation for that, you adorable, smelly old man? And I'm looking for a more favorable explanation than, it's all Daenerys' fault for having been born so late. I see the look of puzzlement on your face, Whitebeard. So here he goes. You see, this was my late brother Viserys' sort of butterfly effect argument. He said that if I, Daenerys, had been born a decade earlier, then Rhaegar would have married me. It's a thing with us Targaryens, you see. So you wouldn't have been unhappy with that Martell wife of his. He wouldn't have dreamed of fancying Lyanna Stark. The Robert Baratheon rebellion wouldn't have been triggered, and, well, that would have been our happily ever after. So what do you think, old geezer? Oi, are you still awake? But Arstan, he's awake. He plays the usual diplomatic card, It's not my place to say, but it is my humble opinion that Prince Rhaegar didn't have it in him to be happy. There was this vibe of doom about him, After all, he was born on the same day as Summerhall. Need I say more? And, at this point, we readers don't really have much to go on as far as this Summerhall is concerned. It's not mentioned at all in The Clash of Kings, and in this book, the only mention it gets, aside from a throwaway line from the Ghost of High Heart, but that's in a future chapter, in fact, in the very next chapter, Arya chapter, the only mention it gets is from Alistair Florent in Dragonstone, Davos 3, when Alistair says, "Did we learn nothing from Summerhall? No good has ever come from these dreams of dragons." He loves his alliterations, Alistair. So we don't really know what went down at Summerhall. Readers of this book, when it was still hot off the press, would have to wait for another 14 years with the release of the Worlds of Ice and Fire for a full explanation. The only info we get by combining those scraps from that Davos chapter and what Arstan says here is that some attempt at reviving dragons, hatching dragons' eggs, possibly using dodgy techniques and resources, or if you want to adopt an ominous Lovecraftian tone, blasphemous and unspeakable practices, wildfire, human sacrifices. Be it as it may, all we know is that the outcome was a massive explosion or fire, resulting in the Summerhall Castle becoming a ruin. We know that because as Arstan continues with his story, Rhaegar apparently used to be fond of that ruin, to the point of spending nights there in search for inspiration for songs, which he would invariably play on his silver harp. See, a proper romantic, I don't mean romantic as in, you booked a candlelit table for two in a cozy restaurant. No, I mean romantic as in, the sense of someone embracing the aesthetical, cliches of romanticism, ruins of ancient castles, the sense of the sublime, poetic terror, yada, 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 that sort of thing. So anyway, weirdly, Daenerys doesn't want to hear about Rhaegar's sad songs. She's not interested, probably because she heard about his reputation as this awesome singer-songwriter all her life. So she wants to know about Robert Baratheon's songs. What was the? She literally asks that. What was his choice? What about the usurper? What sort of songs did he like? And even then, Arstan doesn't miss an opportunity to amaze us by listing the songs on Robert's playlist. I mean, again, pretty intimate knowledge of all these royals for a common squire, wouldn't you say? Common squire, or whatever it is that Arstan claims to be, or claim to have been, whatever he claims it was his latest employment at court. Wouldn't you say, huh? Anyway, so Robert, Robert's preferences were more of the kind of have a banana. He was a cheerful lad, but sad inside. Now, to quote Whitebeard, okay, here we go, more literally, let me just go find the quote. Robert liked songs that made him laugh, like A Cask of Ale, 54 Tons, or The Bear and the Maiden Fair. There's that song again. Songs you could drink to in company of other blokes. And just like that, Jorah Mormont bursts into the tent. That's it. And he looks a mess, yeah, because that's all right. He's been fighting a battle. But the battle has been won. In summary, the Stormcrows turned their cloaks, the slaves broke, and the Second Sons were too wasted to fight. We lost about a dozen men, if that many. Grazdan went to Yunkai to deliver Dany's terms. Miro fled once he realized the Stormcrows had turned. And I have man-hunting him. He shouldn't escape us long. I'm sure we've seen the last of him, right? Right. So at that point, Daenerys' policy is, okay, all right, I'll tell you what, yeah. All those who pledge loyalty under this new management will have their lives spared and will be given a post in this new army's rank and file. Daenerys' army. My Daenerys' followers are swelling in size by the minute. So the next day, it's off to Yunkai. Yeah. And just to prepare the ground, Missandei announces the arrival of Daenerys Targaryen, the Stormborn, the Unburnt, Queen of the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros, and Mother of Dragons. Come to think of it, you know what? Her titles will also be swelling in number, in size. If at some point she has to add Queen of the Andals, the Rhoynar and the First Men, Protector of the Realm, blah, blah, blah. Imagine that. Takes you half an hour to introduce her to people. Anyway, so Missandei says all that stuff to the Yunkish populace in various languages, we imagine, and explains to those folks coming out of the city gates to check out the newcomers and that they all owe their freedom. She explains to them that they all owe their freedom to Daenerys. At which point they spontaneously burst into song and dance. Can't you feel this brand new day? No, it wasn't. No, not quite. No, but they do start shouting a word, each in their respective languages. Like, here we go. There's a list of words here. Huh? She hears Misa, Mela, Ailala, Cafe, Tato. Ooh, I like Tato. Tato. Only Misa is Giscari, apparently. And when Missandei tells Daenerys that all those words mean mother, I love how George R. R. Martin conveys emotion. She chokes up inside. But listen to that. Dany felt a lightness in her chest. Her hand trembled as she raised it. Perhaps she smiled. She didn't know. I love this. Perhaps she smiled. She must have, because the men grinned and shouted again. Wow, imagine that. She's in awe. That is the definition, the description of awe. AWE. Simple as that. And I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but at the beginning of this chapter, Dany was looking at her dragons and thinking to herself, phew, this sucks. Mizzy Masdur assured me I'll never have children. So I guess you three, Drogon, Viserion, and Rhaegal, you are the only quote-unquote children I will ever have. Yeah. Particularly because of a vision she'd had in the House of the Undying, where she was called Mother of Dragons and Child of Three. Or was it Child of Dragons and Mother of Three? And now she was like... Now she has like thousands of people calling her Mother. So you have that nice setup and payoff within the same chapter. And all these children of her want to touch her. Or at least get a glimpse of her, to the point that Jorah goes, no, we better get the hell out of here, health and safety first, But then she remembers another vision from the House of the Undying. Here, let me read you the actual text from A Clash of Kings. It's actually the last vision she ever has in that place. 10,000 slaves lifted blood-stained hands as she raced by on her silver. It all matches, oh my God. Tugging at her cloak, the hem of her skirt, her foot, her leg, her breast. Ooh, that's uncalled for. They wanted her, needed her, the fire, the life, and Dany gasped and opened her arms to give herself to them. So that's how she concludes that those people aren't going to hurt her. And that's where she decides to open her heart and embrace the Yunkish as well. And that, my dear listener, is where Daenerys IV ends. And wow, what a roller coaster that was. Welcome to the beginning of the second half of A Storm of Swords. I certainly enjoyed this chapter, and if you enjoy this kind of a content, don't forget to do all of those things that people do under such circumstances, or not. Feel free to navigate to other chapters, previous Daenerys, past, next Daenerys, previous Storm of Swords, future Storm of Swords, there's a link, description, type thing. Okay, you know what I mean. I'm not very articulate right now. But no, it certainly has been a pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you again. Ciao.